Judgment here. Before the video on my opinions about Minions begins, I would like to thank Emile Valentin, who wrote a piece of music for me, which you have heard as the introduction, and you will hear as the first background piece during this video. This piece of music makes its debut in this video, and you'll be able to hear it in full, but I have been using it already as the pre-stream introduction to my weekly streams, which occur on the Australian Saturday and the Australian Wednesday night. So thanks once again, Emile. I thought I'd make a video about the contribution that minions make when a unique monster is killed. The character you're seeing here is Bludger the Barbarian, whom I mentioned in my video about hoarding tokens of absolution. He is currently level 90, he's progressing towards level 91, and at level 92 we will respec this character as a Pit Zerker. The Pit Zerker builds that I have seen concentrate on Players 1 mode, and that's because of the number of items these uniques can drop in the pit and also Pindleskin. While I do not have the actual moment where the unique dropped the item, I started to have some doubts, particularly where Pindleskin was concerned, as to whether Pindleskin had actually dropped the item or one of the minions had dropped the item. And you can see here with this Headhunter's Glory troll nest, it is clearly one of the minions that has dropped the item and not Pindleskin himself. Now, Pindleskin has 8 minions in a Hell game, and while he is the most likely monster to drop an item, the minions that surround him also have a chance of dropping an item, and their chances of not dropping an item can be reduced by upping the number of players in the game. I still have 2 unique items left to find, Tyrael's Might and Templar's Might, but I've obtained a number of the missing items by running Pindleskin, and what struck me, having done now of the order of 37,500 Pindleskin runs, was that the new unique items I have found have never been dropped in Players 1 mode. So this in turn raised the question, did Pindleskin actually drop the item? So I thought I'd make this video with Bludger eventually destined to become a Pit Zerker and try and compare the 2 techniques of finding items from super uniques such as Pindleskin. These 2 techniques are to single out Pindleskin and other unique monsters in Players 1 mode, defeat Pindleskin and then use Find Item, or if you have a character with an area of effect damage like Lightning Frenzy or Blizzard, to up the number of players in the game if possible and dispatch the entire pack. So which technique is more effective? I have done this table only for Pindleskin and only for Templar's Might, and I'm assuming that the numbers I'm going to show you here will also apply to other unique monsters and other items. All of these figures here come from the Silaspan drop calculator. So for example, here are the odds of Pindleskin dropping Templar's Might, and in this table here I've reverted to standard form or scientific notation. So that number there is the same as this one here. It doesn't matter how many players are in the game for Pindleskin to drop an item. I've shown that in one of my previous videos when I first set out on the search to find the missing items. So these figures here, which are next to the Players 1 table, could also be put in here, here, and here. I've gone as high as 800 MF, which is round about the upper limit to what most players carry on their character. Next to that, you can see the odds of one of his minions dropping the same item, in this case Templar's Might. And I've repeated this for Players 1, Players 3, Players 5 and Players 7. I've then, because there are 8 minions in Pindleskin's pack, I've multiplied this figure by 8 to get this figure here. And then to work out the contribution the minions have made to the chances of Pindleskin dropping this item, I've worked out this figure as a percentage of that one. So 1.57 by 10 to the power of minus 6 is 9.4% of 1.68 by 10 to the power of minus 5. Now, as you can see here, as you up the number of players in the game from 1 to 3 to 5 to 7, because you are reducing the no drop chance for the minions now start to make a more significant contribution. 9.4% in Players 1 mode, 15.3% in Players 3 mode, 18.9% in Players 5 mode, and 21.4% in Players 7 mode. With Bludger destined to become a Pitzerker, I thought I'd compare that with the Barbarian Fight Item skill, which you can see in this table over here. You can see here that the best chances you have of getting one of the minions to drop an item such as Templar's Might is 21.4%, and you can see that the Barbarian Find item already exceeds that at level 3, and this in my opinion explains why the Pitzerker is such a popular Magic Find character. With 50% Find item, which is a popular target for many Pitzerkers, you are well above what you can possibly achieve by killing all the minions of Pendleskin even in a Players 7 game. Here are the conclusions I have drawn from these figures. If your character has sufficient damage to defeat both Pendleskin and his minions, it may be well worth your trouble to up the number of players in the game, because the minions start to make a more significant contribution. I have used the technique of running Pendleskin beyond Players 1 to level a number of characters, and it is a contribution to the experience gained as well as the magic find. The Barbarian Find item skill seems to be superior to defeating Pendleskin and all of his pack. These figures take no account of the time it takes to perform each defeat. It's clearly much quicker for a Barbarian to defeat only Pendleskin in Players 1 mode and then use Find item on only Pendleskin's corpse than to run a Players 7 game and defeat Pendleskin and his entire pack. I had an idea to compare the Magic Find both with and without the Find item skill. We're back to looking at Bludger the Barbarian. He's now at level 91, and he is only a few Bale runs away from hitting level 92. Something I was rather pleased about is that last night from a Bale run he acquired a second Stormlash Scourge. That was the first one I've ever found. There's the second one, and that speeded up the Bale runs a little bit. I have looked at the Kruggers 13 video on his Pitzerker Barbarian, and he has his Find item running at 50%, and I agree with his argument that in effect you have reduced the number of runs if you divide by 1.5. However, I thought I'd take another approach. This character does have 1 point in Find item, thereby getting up to level 6 with a 35% chance of finding an item. But I thought I'd run this argument. If the Find item level was at 50%, what would be the equivalent level of Magic Find if you did not have the Find item skill? So here's another table. Again, this is Templar's Might in Players 1 running from Pendleskin, and there are the Players 1 figures that you saw before. I've assumed that the Barbarian Find item skill level is at 50%, and I have then assumed that gives you half as much chance again. So this figure here is half of that one, and I've then added these two figures together to produce the total probability over here. And then I've said, if a character does not have the Find item skill, what's the Magic Find they would need to have to get that probability of finding Templar's Might from Pendleskin in Players 1 mode? Now you can't work this out exactly, but you can have a look here and say, right, if 0 MF is that and 100 MF is that, which is bigger than 2.52, then the equivalent Magic Find has to be somewhere between 0 and 100. Now to get a more precise figure, we will have to go to the Sailor Spend drop calculator. Here is the Silaspen drop calculator, and I have set this for Templar's Might, and what you can initially see here is the figure for Pindleskin dropping it with no MF at all. Now what we're trying to do here is produce a figure for Pindleskin of approximately 2.52 by 10 to the power of minus 5, or in the decimal fine mode that I'm operating here, 0.0000252. Now we can't get that figure exactly, and what we're trying to do is get as close as we can. We know the answer has to be somewhere between 0 and 100, so we'll start by putting in 50. Now you can see there that's not big enough. We want 252 as those first three digits after the leading zeros. Let's go to 75. And you can now see we are a bit too big. Let's go halfway between 50 and 75. Let's say 63, and that's pretty close. That's a little bit small. So let's go to 64 and see if that improves matters. And you can see that's the same figure as 63. So I'll just go back to 62 to do as a check, and you see it's dropped a bit. So if we give players and their MF sort of the benefit of the doubt and assume the lower figure, our best approximation there is an equivalent MF of 63 if you are running a Barbarian with no MF but 50% in Find Item. So here are the figures that working backwards within the Silaspen drop calculator produces. In effect, if your Barbarian has 200 MF and you are running Find Item at 50%, you'll get a total probability of 5.31 by 10 to the power of minus 5, which gives you an equivalent magic find of 1644. However, there's a problem. The next probability is 5.94 by 10 to the power of minus 5, and you cannot get that figure from the Silaspen drop calculator. The Silaspen drop calculator only allows 4 figures of magic find to be entered. So I've put in 9,999. That means an effective probability of 5.75 by 10 to the power of minus 5. And as you can see, this is not even yet the same as a Barbarian carrying 300 magic find, running Find Item at 50% to give a total probability of 5.94 by 10 to the power of minus 5. And you can see we have comfortably exceeded the total probability that the Silaspen drop calculator will handle. It is not possible to carry 9,999 magic find on your character to generate that total probability of 5.75 by 10 to the power of minus 5. However, it is possible on a Barbarian running Find Item at 50% to carry an equivalent level of MF to generate that figure, including the Barbarian Find Item at 50%. And you can see here I've put another row in the table, and I have put that one there because it's in between that figure there and that figure there. So what we're going to do is work backwards again, and we're going to divide that figure by 1.5 to produce the single figure MF without using Find Item. And that produces that figure there. Now just as a check, if I do half of that and add it to that figure 3.83 by 10 to the power of minus 5, I should get back to that figure there, barring rounding errors. And you can see there's the 3.83 by 10 to the power of minus 5, plus that figure there does in fact give you 5.75 by 10 to the power of minus 5. What level of MF is required to produce that figure there? And you can see it has to be somewhere between 200 and 300. So we are back at the Silaspen drop calculator. We are trying to produce a figure here of 3.83 by 10 to the power of minus 5. We know that 200 is too small and 300 is too large. So we're at the Silaspen drop calculator here, and I've typed in magic find figures until I've got as close as I can to our target figure of 3.83 by 10 to the power of minus 5, and you can see that corresponds to a magic find level of 267. This means that if your Barbarian carries 267 MF and is running Barbarian Find Item at 50%, you have a total probability of finding Templar's Might of that, and that in turn corresponds to a magic find of 9,999, which you cannot possibly carry. So what this means overall is that a barbarian carrying 267 magic find with find item at 50% is in effect carrying a single player magic find without find item of 9,999. No character can carry that much magic find item or not. In this comparison between a barbarian using the find item skill and another character without the find item skill, I had one last idea. If your character was carrying the maximum possible magic find and you did not have the find item skill, what level of barbarian magic find using the find item skill would be the equivalent? Now, according to the Extremis video on this subject, the maximum possible magic find is 1705. This corresponds to this level of probability here. In turn, this gives you a total probability value of that figure there. So what we're going to do here is divide that by 1.5 to get back to this figure here. As before, we're going to check by dividing this figure by 2, putting it there and seeing if that figure plus that figure will get that one there. And you can see there that 3.55 by 10 to the power of minus 5 plus 1.78 by 10 to the power of minus 5 does give 5.33 by 10 to the power of minus 5. Now we ask the question, what level of MF will produce this probability? Now you can see here that it's very close to 200. So we're going to go to the Silospend drop calculator and put in MF figures until we get as close as possible to this figure here. Here is the Silospend drop calculator for the magic find figure of 200, but we already know that the required magic find figure is a little bit more than 200 because we would like this figure here to be as close as possible to 3.55 by 10 to the power of minus 5. And this is about as close as we can get. So the smallest magic find that gets us to a Pindle skin probability of 3.55 by 10 to the power of minus 5 is 203. So we're going to put 203 MF in the table there. So that means that a barbarian running 203 MF with barbarian find item at 50% now has a total probability of finding Templar's Might in players 1 of 5.33 by 10 to the power of minus 5. And that in turn corresponds to the maximum possible magic find of a character who is not using the find item skill. Well, that's about it for my opinions about minions and my comparisons of a barbarian using the find item skill and other characters without that skill. I certainly understand now why the Pitzerker is such a popular magic find character. Bludger has now hit level 92 and is about to respec as a Pitzerker. And I have received some good suggestions from the people who contribute to my stream as to what weapon I should use, be it axe or sword. If you're wondering why I have been concentrating on Templar's Might throughout this video, which Kruggers13 described as the ultimate troll item, well, it's simply because I can't find it.